only 10% of entrepreneurs actually make it. Most of them end up quitting, going bankrupt, stopping, selling at a loss, and going back to the thing that they were doing before. That's entrepreneurship. We're not even talking about franchising. So this business ownership is hard.
Representing Franchise Secrets, Eric Von Horn.
Bobby, welcome back to the show. You're a regular, man.
I feel honored to be here, Eric, in such company.
We were just on with you weren't on that call, were you, yesterday with a new brand that we're looking at working with? Yeah. And they just started talking about, they said, we're a franchisor, been in the game for a little while, like pretty new, but have a decent amount of franchisees. And then she's like, I've listened to all of your podcasts in the last 6 months. And that's why she wanted to have a conversation. I think it's because we, ever since we started Front Street, we've been just helping franchisors, and that in turn helps franchisees in a way that I hadn't done in the podcast before. So it's interesting to get that type of feedback. So you've been one of those that have helped. I give you a shout out on that one because I think we're doing a lot of help out there in the franchising world.
Can't take it with you. Might as well give it away, right?
That's right. Also made me think, and I've seen a number of people post about this lately. Everyone wants instant results. They start a podcast, they start making some posts on social media, and they want instant results. And I saw a post out there. I think it was Alex Hermosi, maybe it was Sharon. I can't remember who it was, but they had an audience in front of them, and the audience was paying them, I don't know, $10,000, $20,000 for it to be in that room for that type of training. And then he said, raise your hands if you just found me in the last 3 months. There's like 2 people that raise their hands. What about the last 2 years? More people raise their hands. What about you started listening to me in 2 years or more than 2 years ago? And most of the hands went up around the room. And I think as franchisees and franchisors, we want instant results. We want to get that FDD and have results immediately, or open up our locations and have results immediately. And there's definitely a longer game to be played, both as a franchisee and a franchisor. So any thoughts on that before we dive into some stuff?
There was a quote, and I think I don't want to butcher it. Let me make sure I get this right. But there was a quote, and I recall this as a kid. I think one of my football coaches told me, and he said, the only place where success comes before work is the dictionary. And it was just that mindset that kind of just like, it's going to be a grind no matter what you do. Like whether it's you're the next Alex Hormozi or the next, big franchisor or franchisee getting your first location open. My rule of thumb is it's usually harder than you anticipate, but you're typically grittier than you anticipate as well too, if you're willing to stick with it. But it just takes time and effort. And everyone says it, if it were easy, everyone would do it. If it were simple, if every single franchise made money year one, everybody would be a franchise owner and nobody would have W-2s, right? It's a matter of, are they going to be, convicted enough to make it work and to work harder when stuff comes up. But that's any business. That's anything worth doing in life, in my opinion. And raising 2 young kids that, I tell my kids every day, like, what do the Brennan boys do? And they say, we can do hard things. And that's just part of it. I want to ingrain that not only in every franchise partner we work with, but this is not a get rich quick scheme. The Jeff Herr, the first rule of franchising is don't franchise your business. And I still stand by that for most brands. And if we can't scare them off then, if I can't scare off a franchise prospect, if I can't scare off a potential employee we're going to hire, then I want them on my team. I want to go to battle with that person because I've shown them all the bad things and they still want to move forward. Those are the people I want in my corners. And those are usually the ones that you see with rooms full of people that are paying them $10,000 or $20,000 to be there.
I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and I sent it to the partnership group in our thread with Tommy Mello, founder of A1 Garage. Tommy's been on the podcast before. And he was on My First Million podcast with the two hosts there, and that's a great podcast. And Tommy did a great podcast with them, and they asked, as usual, really good questions. But one of the things Tommy was saying as he was building A1, he's just like, it's hard, and just went into how hard it is and how you have to have that grit. And I would encourage my listeners to listen to that episode with Tommy talking about entrepreneurs, because franchising's hard. Franchising, like, you are an entrepreneur. It's your own business, and you have a lot of help along the way, but you are still an entrepreneur. So people going from no experience as an entrepreneur to being an entrepreneur is really hard. And you might not have the makeup to do that, and that's okay, but self-select out before you actually buy. And I can't remember exactly what Tommy said, but I'm not sure if this is an accurate quote of that he had or my quote of him, but he's like, only 10% of entrepreneurs actually make it. Most of them end up quitting, going bankrupt, stopping, selling at a loss, and going back to the thing that they were doing before. That's entrepreneurship. We're not even talking about franchising. So this business ownership is hard. And I've talked about that from day one on the podcast, because when Brian Holmes and I first started the Franchise Story podcast, we knew it was hard. We knew it was a grind, and we talked about that kind of stuff. And I've talked about it all throughout the 400 ish episodes of the Franchise Secrets podcast. And I don't think I'll ever stop talking about it, because we hear it all the time. This is harder than I thought. And that's a true statement. It promises you one thing: death, taxes, change, and being an entrepreneur is harder than you thought. Those are the only four things that are true in the world.
Amen.
All right. We are going to talk about like the invisible infrastructure of franchise growth. And this is how franchisors can choose to grow their franchise. And we've seen some franchisors just catch like wildfire organically. Like Crumble Cookies is an example of that. They perfect timing with COVID, and they were successful before COVID in terms of, but I believe I knew their franchisees making money and selling and opening up locations like that. That's success. They were successful, and COVID really grew that exponentially because of technology and how they were able to help their franchisees during that time. So that's an example of like organic company that just caught on fire. Orange Theory did it, and I believe it was harder for them. It was a grind at first, and then through their technology play, some of the moats they had around that business and the area developers or area reps that they were using, that thing took off and grew. And both of those have had challenges recently too. So doesn't mean because it starts out great that there's not going to be challenges in the future. What I want to talk about is, so sometimes franchisors can just, catch fire like that. That's an anomaly. That is not common. Most franchisors are going to, it's going to be harder for them to find franchisees than they thought. And it's going to take more time with the founder to help people walk through the entire process of becoming of buying that franchise. And then once they get to that point, then they have to start helping franchisees become successful franchisees, and at the same time bringing in new franchisees. And all of that is really new to them. So do you want to talk about some of those challenges? So maybe speak to the emerging franchisor out there, or the person that is getting their FDD, and let's help some of them out to uncover some of the challenges that they're about ready to face.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, I mean, we just got back from a franchise conference just a week or two ago. So I'm actually going to Tarantino this and kind of start at the end and go backwards, because we were at a conference 2 weeks ago, in certain comments that I heard, and you and I know this, Eric, people that have been in the industry, depending on how they go about it. But one of the first things you need to think about is who's representing you to sell franchises. And I know it seems weird that, well, I have a graded model. Who cares who's awarding my franchises? Well, the good franchise developer is going to be a recruiter. They're going to be, a bit of a finance person. They're going to put on their legal hat at one point, talking about the franchise agreement, and then they're going to put on their therapist hat when everything starts bubbling up at the end. And one of the common themes I heard at this conference, which was specifically a franchise broker conference, not every brand works with brokers, to your point, but I think it's relevant to brands that grow organically or not, is if the first point of contact with your brand is somebody that they don't like and that doesn't know how to make people feel comfortable and command their attention and be a voice of authority, like you're going to lose. And a great example, like literally before we got on this call, I got a call, I will not name which brand, from a former franchisor that I worked with. We had tons of success together. Like this was a hot moving brand, one of the fastest moving brands at the time, with the prior group I was with, and they grew to 500 plus territories, tons of success. And they're kind of at the later stage, but they kind of transitioned. I came over to Front Street, and I got a call, and he's like, "Hey, will you sit down and talk with my CEO?" And I said, "Tell me a little bit more." And like, "Well, we signed with another franchise development group, and we're not getting any traction whatsoever." And I think it's a combination of the life cycle of the way they are, but also like the people representing it. Like, do they really know your brand as well as maybe others do? So I think that's a big, if you're a founder and you're the founder selling it, if you hire a development person, are they really the right representative of your brand? And are they going to take the responsibility? I think this role in franchise development is a responsibility. Your responsibility is to protect the brand, but also, there's no fiduciary responsibility, but you kind of want to protect people from wasting their time, energy, and money. And if you're a good franchise developer, you're thinking long term. If I award this person and they're not successful, they're not able to follow the system, or we don't have good systems and processes, or they're not the right fit, it's going to make your job harder as a developer too. So I start with the right people, whether you're the founder, like know that you're that person that can quote unquote sell, educate, recruit people. And if you're not, get somebody who knows what they're doing that everyone kind of likes, and they like to be around, and they can have delicately direct or, tough conversations with candidates and as well, to make sure that they're going to be the right fit. But that was just one example. The right person representing your brand is huge. As you think about an emerging brand or a brand just starting to get your FDD, my feedback is always slow is fast, fast is slow. And what I mean by that is like go slow in the beginning so you can go fast. Don't overly do this. And if I have one unit and I sell 500 locations and I don't have any proof of concept, it's been around for a while, I would start, we've seen brands do this with friends and family members, like start that way. Because you're going to invest a lot of money. And if you're not ready to go fast and you don't have the right partners or surround yourself with the right infrastructure to go fast, the wheels are going to fall off very quickly. And it's expensive to franchise. Like go small, bootstrap as long as you can, and then build out your team, build out the infrastructure, but you're doing it with less risk, versus, hey, I've got 300 franchisees that are relying on me and I don't know what I'm doing. Like that, you got an upside down kind of franchise model at that point. So just making sure that you really stress test your model, you pressure test it, you figure out the holes. Doesn't mean you're going to be perfect when you go to market and you say, I'm ready to go full scale, but there's nothing wrong with awarding 5 or 10, 15 franchises a year. That's great for some brands, but you get to control that. In a lot of cases, you have to put more money in a pocket, versus all the expenses that come along with other groups. There's ways to do it right, and strategic, versus I need to move 100 units a year. I just got my FDD, or hey, I've got 2 locations open and they're both legacy owners and I'm selling a very different model. I've seen franchises out there that literally people are buying into an idea. It doesn't even exist. They don't even have a location yet. So again, just know as a franchisor, where are you in that stage? And as a franchise buyer, like you need to realistically cut through the hype, cut through all the BS and say, where is this brand today? And is this a brand that I align with, that I'm a good fit for? Because you might be a good fit for a brand 5 years from now, but you may not be a good fit for them today, of who they need with where they are in their growth journey.
Attention, franchisors and franchisees. There are 2 really important resources that I want to share with you that will help you avoid costly mistakes and increase your enterprise value. The first is our free Facebook group. It's a community that has over 4,000 franchisees and franchisors in it. When somebody asks a question, they get honest and authentic answers from multiple perspectives. You can join the group for free over at franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. The second resource I want to share with you is if you're a franchisee and you want to be around a community of successful Zs and other brands and in other industries, This is why I created the Franchisee Mastermind. If you want access to the best single and multi-unit owners to know what they're doing, or if you want to be around other multi-brand owners, then you'll want to check out my Franchisee Mastermind. The reason why people join is they want access to my Rolodex, my connections, to each other. They want a shortcut success, both short-term and long-term. Links will be in the show notes or at scalablefranchise.com.
I like, let's say it's a new brand. They have little proof of concept, or maybe they have 1 or 2 or 3 locations, and the group selling for them, or maybe it is an experienced franchise development person that has sold hundreds of locations. I would, as a buyer and as an advisor like we are, I would advise that group to like have a group like ours that is incentivized for long-term growth versus short-term cash flow, or help that founder sell franchises, because they're not going to be so great at selling franchises that they're going to oversell right away on something that is just unproven. Maybe they don't have enough locations. Maybe they don't, there's a lot of things that could go wrong. I'm thinking about like what we're doing with a certain brand that we are getting ready to launch, where we are the franchisors of this brand. We're partnered with the founder as and we're growing this brand as a franchisor. So Front Street's a franchisor, the founder's a franchisor. We're coming together to grow this thing. It could go right now, and we've said it. We could launch this thing and it would sell a ton. Is that the right thing to do long term for the brand? No. Like, we've come to the conclusion, no. Could we sell a lot? Yes. Do we think that's the right thing to do? No. And so we are in the process of opening up some more locations as the founder, and then Front Street open up locations to have more data points and to go through some of the pain of opening in different markets, and to make sure everything is dialed in. So buyers out there, be aware, and I've never said this before. I don't know if be aware is the right word, or just take note of new brand, killer franchise development person selling a ton, no proof of concept, not a lot of data out there. That is something you just need to be aware of. There's a lot of things to just be aware of. Doesn't mean it's bad. Doesn't mean it's not going to work. Doesn't mean it's not going to be great, but you need to understand what you're actually getting into. Any thoughts on that? I'm starting to get a little controversial here, Bobby.
I like it. No, be aware, beware. Sometimes is close, and I think you hit the nail on the head, because again, as we evaluate brands, we're looking for a couple things, and I think this particular brand we're talking about, there's experience behind there, but not a ton. The category, it's a new category for the most part. Like, there's not anything like it. Those are two variables that we usually like to see: a proven category, and maybe they're a new franchisor, but they've been in business for a long time. We have brands that we talk to like that. They've been in business for 10 plus years, or 100 locations open. Like, it's either they've got experience, or they is in the category, or they have experience as a franchisor. Those are, like, separately, those are still really good. I'll take one out of the two. When you don't have both, that's where we want to incubate these brands a little bit more. And I think it's a smart idea for these founders, because they don't know what they don't know. You think of just, we talk about this, just our infrastructure, of, okay, I need somebody to handle all of the leads and all the territory checks and all these different things that are coming in. There's so much infrastructure that a lot of brands don't know about. As they get into franchising, like, oh, well, what do you mean I have to answer territory checks? Or what do you mean I have to go to
sorry to interrupt.
events?
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah.
I get in trouble sometimes for interrupting. I love interrupting Jeff. Jeff needs interrupted sometimes. So
He does.
I don't
As
like
do I.
interrupting you. Yeah. And Jeff lets me. Let's talk about, let's set this up. Let's talk about infrastructure, that and why franchisors need this infrastructure for franchise development, and setting it up the right way, and some of the challenges with it. But I think a franchise development infrastructure for a founder selling is really important. Otherwise, that's when you are spinning your wheels, wasting too much time. And especially once you start having some franchisees come on board and you're still selling, can it be done? Absolutely. Should it be done? Maybe, but you need to have the right tools, infrastructure in place to be able to do it. So with that said, why don't you talk about like the infrastructure for like a founder doing it on their own, so they're going in eyes wide
Yeah.
open.
We've done some free kind of webinars. We've done franchise accelerator type of events. I think things like that are really good to have a framework, right? Because I'm running a framework. What is the general frame? My business is going to be different than the next person's business, or a home service is different than beauty versus fitness. Like they're all going to be different. But having a general outlined franchise development discovery or sales process, as we call it, is really important. But also, it starts before that. As I mentioned, when a lead comes in, someone goes on your website, or you get a referral if you're working with franchise consultants or brokers, or however you get that lead. Speed to lead is literally a term in our category and industry. Like you need to be fast to get back to that person because they clicked on your link, they submitted their information, they want to learn about it. So whether you're doing that through automation, we leverage a lot of automation with our team. So we've kind of got our own internal CRM that will automatically kick out information, right? You create this information, and then what is the process that you're going to take people through? Tell them what you're going to tell them. Here's what our process is. I also want to see, can they follow a process? If they're going to buy your franchise, depending on where you are, whether you're first franchisee or adding your 1000th franchisee, you may be a little more okay with someone not following the process to a T on your first franchisee, because they're going to be a little bit more of a true entrepreneur. Whereas if you're 1,000 units in, if that person can't follow my process, they're not in the franchise system, because I need somebody that can follow that, not someone that can be managed. So just getting to those lead registrations, or entering them into the CRM, or reaching out to them, or scheduling calls, like that's a person for us. We actually have 2 people specifically that just do lead registrations, territory checks, and scheduling. So our franchise team can focus on doing what we do best, is talking to candidates, interacting with the brand to make sure we're properly presenting the franchise opportunity to the candidates, um, working with the brokers, any follow-ups, hosting webinars, hosting franchisee or leadership calls as well too, and coordinating those. There's a lot of things that can be done, but with a smaller pipeline, can that all be done by one person? Maybe, to your point. But I think using like infrastructure, whether it be, we use a lot of different technology and tools, but having those at your fingertips, there's a lot of great tools out there. The problem with a lot of people is building it out from scratch. Like that's a time, and it's expensive. So you're starting to see some of these, hybrid models, and I cut this out if you don't want me to say anything, Eric, but like there's some things that Front Street will even be rolling out, um, that will help franchisors be done with you, not done for you, franchise development. So I think those are some things that we've learned that are, hey, how can people sit on our knowledge base and resources and have access to a lot of the coaching and training? But if you don't know what you're doing, you're kind of flying blind. Having a framework is really important, but there's going to be technology, there's going to be people, there's going to be processes. And then also, if you're going to work with brokers, brokers are very particular on how they work. So you want to understand, what does that look like? And I think there's ways to do that for the brands that aren't a fit for traditional Front Street or an FSO, right? Whether it be us or someone else. There's brands that are great opportunities, but they need to incubate longer. And I think there's some really exciting stuff that we have coming, in the next year, or sooner than later, I should say, that will help alleviate some of that. But to your point, like there's so much time, energy, and resources. There's a reason why people join masterminds, as you know, Eric, right? They want to leverage knowledge from other people, and they're willing to pay for that. I think there's some really unique opportunities, in the franchise space for, I don't call it fractional, but additional resources to these emerging brands specifically, or these founder-led brands that are doing development themselves, um, to not recreate the wheel, but compress the learning curve, even though they don't want to award more than 10, 15, 20 franchise territories a year.
Yeah, I think they can have the infrastructure to be able to award like just call it 10 franchisees a year. And they need, I would, what would you say, hire a VA to do territory checks, outreach, some communication. And I don't even
Yeah.
think it all needs to be, at least it doesn't need to be on the phone. I mean, it could be,
Yeah.
I know we do that, But,
Yeah.
at the very least, start communicating via text, instant message, email, to be able to take some of that off of the founder or the franchise developer that is probably doing other things. Now, if you have a franchise developer that you hired, and this is another problem. I see people, wasting, $300,000 a year with a developer that is bringing in 5 new franchisees a year, and that's a challenge for a brand. That's a cash flow burn for
Yeah.
a brand. So I think there's some. I'm going to start putting out some more information in the mastermind and some other things that will help people with some of this. We might even have some like templates for people at some point, because we just want to help franchisors out there. And we do this day in and day out. We think about creation. Like, what do we need to create? What does a brand need to create? Different email templates, processes for discovery day, like what are some of the things that need to be created?
Yeah. I mean, everything from a franchise brochure, introductory presentation. We love videos. So, hey, here's examples of videos that we recommend. Um, I think of just like the brand story, right? Like really outlining that. Most franchisors will have a tool called a 2-minute drill. If you don't know what that is, if you work with brokers, you will. And how to articulate that in a clear and concise method that both franchise candidates and franchise brokers can understand the business. So I think kind of what are my quick hits, but then everything from financial workbooks. If you're going to provide an Excel version of maybe your item 7 or item 19 for franchisees to slice and dice themselves, building out a good tool like that for people to build out their own pro formas and tools like that can be very beneficial. And then, as you mentioned, like a discovery day or confirmation day agenda deck, and then really, I think a good developer, they have a call, they send a follow-up. There's action items or homework to do, whether it's videos, whether it's fill out this, whether it's secret shop the competition. We do that for some of our brands. Um, and then, they're following up on that in the next call and seeing, did they do their homework? But an outlined, defined process with actionable takeaways. There's going to be quite a bit of content to create. And how do I leverage this in a way? And how do I communicate this in a way to the broker, to the candidate, to whomever I'm working with? Um, Templates, I'm a big believer of R&D, rip off and duplicate. And that's kind of what we're talking about here, Eric, is just giving people the opportunity to see what we think good looks like and leverage it from people who've done it before and have scaled brands. And then, rip off and duplicate that, make it their own. Here's a general template outline you can follow. You fill in the gaps, paint by numbers type of franchise development, because it makes it easier. You already see what the general picture is, but you need to fill in your colors. You need to fill in your specifics of the brand. So that's kind of my general thought process of, there's a lot to create, but it's everything from presentations, talk tracks, 5-minute pitches, whatever that may be. There's a lot of videos and content we like to create. And again, we're doing that every single day. We can give outlines of what we recommend the best way to do to allow people to R&D.
We are going to be rolling out something to franchisors to help them with some of this, not as an FSO, but something that is like a done with you type program for them. And we're not going to be doing it for many this year. It'll be 5 max. And
Right.
we've decided that. But if you're interested as an emerging brand, just reach out to me on socials, or Eric at Franchise Secrets, ERIK at franchisesecrets.com. And what I'd like to do too is get some type of like a PDF of just all the things that people need to be thinking for their franchise development process, like a checklist of things that they need to do. So I'll try to have something like that. So if you do email me, we can get that to you as well if you're an emerging brand. So talking to founders here, not consultants, not franchise development people, but founders.
Yeah.
All right, Bobby. I know we're in a tight time this morning. We're both probably late for calls, so thought this was helpful. Thanks, man.
Appreciate it, Eric. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Franchise Secrets podcast. Links to everything can be found over at franchisesecrets.com. And if you want my help with anything from starting your own franchise to growing your current franchise business, please visit scalablefranchise.com.